live long and prosper.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Shut up and take my money.
By Grabthar's hammer. What a saving.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
X never, ever marks the spot.
Winter is coming. You're a wizard, Harry.
Stay a while and listen.
Hey, old Kermit the Frog.
Bow ties are cool.
So say we all.
This is a Play on Nerds.
Welcome, boys and girls of all ages, to a very special episode. Episode 209 of A Play on Nerds. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jarman.
And we're here, as always, to co-host the living hell out of this.
Damn right. Special episode. What are we talking about, Steve?
Well, Cobra Kai, the smash hit, continuation of the story from the Karate Kid, has been slamming it on Netflix.
6 seasons.
And is going in to the last half of what they are saying is their finale season. They're just releasing it. So in honor of that, mixed with our close to heart rule of 3, we have decided to do Karate Kid 3.
And how do we always manage to, even though it's rule of 3 every time, usually get the worst one?
That's because 3 is where like original actor didn't come back, original director didn't come back, original writer didn't come back. Like that's where it happens. So,
damn you, Creep Show 3. Oh my God.
Damn you, Creep Show
Still
3,
hurts.
leading us down this path.
Now, have you seen Cobra Kai? I can't remember if you have.
I've watched 1.5 episodes.
Okay, I haven't seen any of it either. But
you know,
people love it.
I've seen some stuff on like the Reddit and YouTube stuff that gives me some idea of what is happening. I think all the bad guys we see in this one get some sort of redemption arc, maybe.
And it's somewhat comedic kind of thing. That's what I hear. Okay. That's fun.
Yeah. So maybe after this, we'll be inspired to watch it.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? So, Jarman, what have you been up to since last time we talked?
Well, I've been part of a play for a while. This short plays I've been in.
Is this the Star Trek one?
Yeah, the Star Trek one. It's been really cute, and it's made me feel very old because it's community theater, so a lot of the actors are so much younger than me.
Oh my God!
And I can't believe like some of them, they speak the way I only see on TikTok or on like memes. These like words that Gen Zers say. It comes out of their mouth like normal. And I'm like, whoa, I'm seeing it in real life. This is crazy. Whereas Jolie, my wife, sees that every day because she teaches middle schoolers. But I never hear it. I didn't leave the house.
If anything, she probably gets to evolve with it.
Yeah. She sees when they're being not popular
like
anymore.
us.
And also we had the election here in the States, and it was a stressful time for everyone. One way that came out in my play, which was kind of funny, is that we have a line in the play that the writer wrote. Because it kind of goes to an alternate dimension through a transporter, and this woman who's from our reality goes into like a Star Trek reality, and the character says, you know, like our former president Ronald Reagan, and then the Vulcan character's like, Ronald Reagan? You mean the actor from the Why would they be an actor for president? What's next? A reality TV star? And so now we've reelected Trump in this country. So I got a call from the director today because we have 3 more shows this weekend. And so it's literally right after the election happens, and we live in Florida, so probably a lot of Trump fans in the audience. And so she just basically called to give us different direction on that line to, instead of before we said it and then my character laughs, now the character's just going to say it and stare out into the audience, and I'm going to be quiet and look like confused, but not laugh. So it's just so strange. I've never been in a production before where literally my direction had to change mid-run of the show because of what's happening in current events. It was very interesting, kind of like weird, surreal moment, but to get that kind of call from your director. But yeah, it's interesting.
But yeah, I the only time I remember that happening in theater when in college or whatever, is when an accident would happen in a rehearsal or something that was better than what we were doing.
That's always good, usually, yeah.
And then like you'd get that like, do that tomorrow night. Yeah.
Or like in one of the shows, it goes really well. You do something by accident. Like our first show, actually, there's a scene where the Vulcan starts making out with the Kirk character, and they fall into a chair, and the chair just broke underneath them. And the audience laughed uproariously, thought it was on purpose. But no, the guy really hurt his ass when he fell on the ground. It was a complete accident. And we can't recreate it because the chair was permanently broken. So it's like, well, can't do that for the rest of the run. So, yeah.
There was a production I was in where I had to drink fake beer, where the designer got a real thing of Budweiser, dumped it, cut the tops, and then wrapped them around like seltzer cans, and those would get rewrapped every night. And I had to like basically chug a seltzer on stage.
Burp
and
like
we're
hell.
in this scene where I'm just in the corner drinking this thing. And there was a line break and I had to burp so bad. And so I let out this gigantronto belch that filled this little box theater I was in at this college.
Oh my
and it
God.
got a huge laugh, a riotous laugh. And I, the director, that was one of the directors, like, can you do that every night?
Can you
I'm
burp
like,
a command,
probably.
please?
Probably.
I would have loved to have seen that production.
Yeah, it was a good one.
But yeah, so I said that going on this weekend that I'll have some more free time again, thankfully, because busy is busy. But what about you, buddy?
Well, I've been in California. I'm on a short-term assignment with Apple. So this is exciting. Good chance to reconnect with some people I haven't seen in a while. This coming week, I get to play in my Star Wars D&D game in person. We're doing a special in-person session since I'm here. And man, I got to tell you, this last session with some big drama, and I've never been more excited that like a session is happening in person, because this is the one to have it happen. Where our group walked into a situation where we had an old friend on one side and we had someone that we were obligated to on the other side, and old friend wants to kill person we're obligated to. And the party basically split. So 3 of us have taken up on one side and 3 of us have taken up on the obligation side.
Are they about to fight each other?
And that's the next session we're about to walk into.
It feels like the airport fight scene from the Avengers movie. You know, like they split off into different factions.
Yeah, man. It kind of happened all right in the last 10 minutes of the session.
Oh, geez.
So it was real good. I'm very excited to have it play out.
And
I'm
the
really
actor
not sure how I'm
was
going to
just
pull
so
this off.
happy to be performing in front of them.
That's the thing. I get called out by my group. They're like, Cookie, every character you do is like a agent of chaos. And I'm like, yes, because I like to move the story forward. You guys like to talk, and explore all these things when I know that Sean really just wants us to go through that door.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I'm not the scout, I'm not the perception, I'm not the muscle, I'm like always the first guy in, because that's how adventure happens. You take a step through a door.
Yeah. As long as you're not a Leroy
so many
Jenkins kind of
people-
like screwing everything up, that's fine.
No. I try not to do that. I try to give them time to like talk, do their perception checks, but like at some point you have to pull a trigger and do a thing.
Yeah.
And
We'll sit
also,
there for
I'm a
hours.
big believer, both as a DM and as a player, of not trying to plan too far ahead as a player. Because there's all this like, okay, we're going to go into this door and then we're going to sneak down this hall. We'll go into this computer room. After that, we're going to climb through this vent. We'll make our way there, blah, blah, blah. And you get in the door and everything is different.
It's all Ocean's 11.
And
until
suddenly
it's not.
you guys spent 30 minutes of your 3-hour session talking about something that didn't end up happening.
Mhm.
Whereas I would rather say, all right, we're going to go in. We'll try to make the lab. We'll go from there. And then take a step across the doorway.
Because then sometimes they plan too much. It gets into metagaming and like looking outside the actual narrative. And it's just like,
When you give players too much time to talk.
yeah.
Well, what if it's that thing we saw last time? Oh, that was a blank. Like,
What are their weaknesses and strengths? Like, yeah.
go through a door. So exciting in-person next session. But otherwise, I've been like maneuvering being a remote parent, which has been a learning experience.
For sure.
I'm finally in my thing I'm doing. I'm currently at a point where I can finally sort of set my own schedule. So I've been able to take my 15s and do calls on lunches and stuff finally. And then I'm getting out at 5, so I get to do bedtime call.
Oh, nice.
You know, those sort of things. And then otherwise, I've just been walking like a monster out here.
Because you didn't get a
Like
car
a
for yourself
monster.
or anything.
I borrowed a buddy of mine's car, but I'm trying not to drive it a ton.
Good.
It's like a lot of obligation to drive someone else's pretty expensive car.
That's true.
So like I've been using it to do grocery runs and that sort of stuff, but to from work, to from wherever else. Yeah. But
Just
I've been
walk.
averaging 6 miles a day.
And most of California, you wouldn't imagine being much of a walkable city, but, you know, depending where you are, but that's good.
Well, it's winter right now here, like approaching winter. So when I leave in the morning, it's in like the high 50s.
Oh, it's
When I come home in the evening, it's been in like the mid to high 60s. Perfect walking weather. It's 1.5 miles flat. It's great.
It's still like 85 degrees here at all times, but it's slowly getting there.
Well, you do live in Satan's butt crack. So
I do, surprisingly.
that explains the smell down here.
Yes. There's just cracks everywhere.
It's just Mickey Mouse in despair.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Hope you brought money.
And light clothing. And suntan lotion. All right, let's bring you some nerdy news.
I think it does.
It's time for Nerdy News.
So in lieu of nerdy news today, it's been a stressful time with the election and everything going on here in the States. So I decided to brighten up our day with some one-liners. Just some one-liner jokes to brighten our day.
I love that.
Some of these are from the wonderful Stephen Wright, who is one of the kings of one-liners. There was a great episode of the Cosmic Pizza podcast not long ago where they talked about their favorite comedians. And I think Paul Wright had a bunch of British comedians I actually not had heard of before who are all specialized. These are very British kind of
Of course,
humor.
Paul Wright did.
Well, yeah.
Probably related to him. They're both from the same aisle.
It's true. But they're kind of the kings of that too over there, just these one-liners. So here's some classics. I spilled spot remover on my dog. Now he's gone. If at first you don't succeed, then skydiving isn't for you.
That's true.
I busted a mirror and got 7 years bad luck, but my lawyer thinks he can get me 5. Everywhere is within walking distance, if you have the time.
That's true.
That applies to Steve right now, where he is.
I got time.
Whenever I think of the past, it brings back so many memories. There's a fine line between fishing and standing on the shore like an idiot.
That's true.
If you saw a heat wave, would you wave back? Here's one of my favorites. I think it's wrong that only one company makes Monopoly.
That's good.
Why don't they make the whole plane out of the black box stuff? Because every plane, the black box survives. Makes sense.
Is that really his? I've heard that joke for 25 or 30 years.
It's such an old one. A clear conscience is usually a good sign of a bad memory. I went to the general store. They wouldn't let me buy anything specific. If Barbie is so popular, why do you have to buy her friends? Makes sense.
Ooh, that's...
How young can you die of old age? Oh. It doesn't matter what temperature the room is. It's always room temperature.
True. It depends on the room.
And there's a couple more that are not Stephen Wright. Most people are shocked when they find out how bad I am as an electrician. Never trust atoms. They make up everything. My wife just found out I replaced our bed with a trampoline. She hit the ceiling. That one's not very funny, actually. I was addicted to the hokey pokey, but then I turned myself around.
That's what it's all about.
And you know what? The last one, I used to think I was indecisive, but now I'm not so sure.
All right. So admittedly, Stephen Wright is not who I had in my head.
Uh-huh.
So Paul Wright, I'm sorry. I know you're all beautiful individuals.
Oh no, he wasn't lauding Stephen Wright. He likes the British one. Stephen Wright was not one he was talking about. But they do the same last name. Right. That's true.
Yes. So just Paul, just know that I know you're all different.
Oh yeah. But also the King one-liners I didn't do any from, which was oh my God, now I'm forgetting his name. Mitch
Rodney
Hedberg.
Dangerfield?
Mitch Hedberg is my favorite King of one-liners. But we didn't do any of those today because they're
I got a roll of lifesavers in my pocket and I'm excited because pineapple is next.
My friend, he handed me a picture. He said, "Here, it's a picture of me when I was younger." And I said, "Every picture is of you when you were younger."
I saw a wino eating some grapes and I was like, dude, just wait.
I went to go buy a donut and the vendor gave me a receipt for the donut. And I said, I do not need a receipt for this transaction. What am I going to do with this? Put it in the file under D for donut? Oh,
I love rotisseries. They're like morbid Ferris wheels for chickens.
I really like escalators because they never are completely broken. They just become stairs.
All right, and just like that,
there we go.
We have fulfilled it.
I didn't even need to read those. That was great. So that's your little dose of a little pick me up, brighten your day with terrible one-line jokes.
And to bring us down, let's talk about our main segment, the movie Karate Kid 3.
Yep.
All right, well, we get a gentle montage of Daniel meeting Mr. Miyagi and how their karate friendship forms. Daniel then winning the All Valley tournament against all odds with a kick to the face, which someone pointed out is illegal, so he couldn't have won with that move that he won with. We get to see Mr. Miyagi take down the big bully sensei, Kreese. And it's months later now. The bad guy's washed up. Looks like he's been drinking, carrying a duffel bag around, like you do. And that's when I realized that this wasn't the Karate Kid movie that I thought it was. I was thinking of Karate Kid 2, which is in Japan. So big surprise for me. So it's like a year later, the bad guy's washed up. He lost all his students. He's on the edge of losing his dojo. He goes to an old student who's just a mean rich guy who owns the dojo, Terry Silver. It turns out he's been his benefactor this whole time. And he sends Kreese off to Tahiti to take a vacation for some reason, right as Daniel and Mr. Miyagi are getting back from the second movie. We wrap up very quickly the fact that Daniel's mom isn't really there, and Daniel's going to live with Mr. Miyagi. We then get a very neatly wrap up on the fact that Kumiko, his girlfriend from Japan, also won't be appearing in this film. And Mr. Miyagi mopes through his garden. The building having being sold brings up painful memories as he faces having to leave this place he's called home for so long. Miyagi needs money to make a bonsai store of his dreams a reality, and Daniel offers to give him his college tuition, but Miyagi won't hear of it. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Terry Silver is up to no good. He bought 20 dojos throughout the valley, and Kreese is going to run them all. This rich, wealthy, evil man then outlines his devilish plan against a 19-year-old. How he's going to brainwash Daniel and then train him badly and then make him lose the next tournament.
What convoluted plan.
Daniel reveals he went against Mr. Miyagi's wishes and he went and rented a place for the shop. Miyagi doesn't accept it first, but Daniel talks him into it and then goes and shows him a rundown ramshackle shop literally on the wrong side of the tracks. Terry then is in the bathtub talking to his secretary and just being generally awful, talking about dumping toxic chemicals. And that's when we meet Mike Barnes, a young, tough and karate master, I guess, who immediately tries to extort Terry and ends up getting 50% of the new dojos if he beats Daniel in the All Valley tournament. Miyagi and Daniel are finding soil for bonsai and on the coast, and Miyagi reveals that he brought a wild bonsai from Okinawa, which he planted on just a nightmare rock face somehow when he arrived. And he goes and teaches Daniel the master kata, which contains all karate within it in some way. Daniel soft pitches that he received an invitation to the All Valley tournament, and there's been a change to the rules this year that because he's the champion, he only has to fight in one fight. But Mr. Miyagi wants nothing to do with it. Daniel heads over to meet a cute pottery girl across the street, and they arrange a date. Daniel pushes the tournament issue again. Miyagi says that he has to answer that question for himself and walks away. Daniel grabs a shower before the date, and suddenly Terry Silver is at their house, stalking him in person. We met a series of young toughs and riffraffs earlier, any of which would make way more sense to go do this, but Terry has to go do this himself. He sifts through Miyagi's belongings, looking for clues, I guess.
Yeah.
What an involved bad guy was my next comment.
Jolie said the same thing. She's like, why is he doing this himself? Yeah.
Daniel tells Miyagi he doesn't want to do the tournament. And he goes and burns the invitation, which pleases Miyagi. And it turns out that Terry Silver was hiding in the chimney the whole time.
Like Santa Claus, but evil.
Daniel goes to his date, who immediately reveals that she has a boyfriend, kind of. It feels like a bullet they loaded, but it didn't matter or pay off. So Daniel treats her to a romantic night at Mr. Miyagi's junkie shop. Suddenly, the toughs are there who taunt Daniel about not entering All Valley tournament. Daniel's training continues, but Terry Silver is suddenly there. He poses as a humble karate practitioner from Korea, where Kreese was their number one student come to America, and he just hates what Kreese did, and they just heard about it. And he name drops that he was in the Vietnam War and he's a soldier, and that really appeals to Miyagi. And then he like strokes Miyagi's ego a little bit, and he breaks the news that Kreese is dead. And he walks away with a very smug smile. Daniel and Jessica have another romantic date at the shop again. The toughs are back, though, and beat the living crap out of Daniel and break up the shop.
And kick Jessica as well.
Yeah, goading Daniel into a fight. Daniel gets his ass whooped, but Miyagi shows up and deals with the toughs handedly. And I wrote, we could talk about this, is a good thing. There was a great shot with a train in this sequence as the bad guys pulled away. And I was like, this belonged in a better movie. I'll talk about it in a moment. Daniel and Miyagi return home to find all their bonsais have been stolen. Daniel goes to the cop, but Miyagi just goes fishing. Daniel then has his next great idea in this movie where he's going to go on a dangerous cliff climbing expedition with his girlfriend to retrieve Miyagi's wild bonsai, which he has no reason to think is what Mr. Miyagi wants him to do. Not only that, they climb down the cliff. He immediately drops it. In the ocean. They've got to rush to retrieve it, but they find the roast being pulled up by the young toughs. Daniel is forced to sign the application. The thugs pull them up. And my question is, how are they planning on getting back up?
Yeah.
The thug rips the tree in a final cruel act. Daniel brings it to Mr. Miyagi, who's like, he does pretty well with this news because he had to sell his truck that morning to get more bonsai trees. Daniel reveals he signed up for the tournament out of duress, and Miyagi says he won't train him. Then Terry Silver shows up, and Daniel reveals that Miyagi won't train him either. The toughs show up. They beat the crap out of Daniel again. He gets beat up no less than 6 times in this movie. Terry shows up and knocks the toughs around, putting on a big show for Daniel. And Terry offers to train him. And then Daniel goes and seeks him out. They start immediately, and he teaches him the Quicksilver method. 1, if a man can't stand, he can't fight. We don't get the other 2 rules at this time. Daniel kicks a board really hard and hurts himself. Miyagi extends an olive branch, helping to soothe his foot, clearly regretting pushing Daniel away. The training resumes the next day, though, and we get rule 2. If a man can't breathe, he can't fight. And Silver teaches him to do dirty rib punches. Daniel resists, and Terry pretends to walk away, and Daniel hits the board anyway. That night, Daniel sneaks into Mr. Miyagi's room to steal some of his healing herbs for his destroyed body. But Miyagi knows. He tries to reach out to Daniel again, but Daniel sort of like turns him away. The next day, with more training, we get rule 3. If a man can't see, he can't fight. He teaches Daniel to make dirty eye strikes, injuring Daniel's hand. Daniel is pumped. He goes out with his girl. Terry's there at the dance club and pays a guy to hit on Jessica for pushing Daniel into punching this guy and really hurting him. And him and Silver run off like kids. He heads over to his girlfriend's house to apologize. Daniel feels just awful about hitting the guy, and he tells Miyagi what he's been going through. Miyagi reveals that the bonsai root was strong and the tree survived, just like how Daniel's strong inside. Daniel goes to tell Terry it's over, but Terry turns tough guy, and suddenly Kreese is there, hiding behind his own cardboard cutout. Also, the tough guy's there. Daniel says he won't fight, and the tough kicks his ass again. Daniel tries to leave. They go to drag him back in, but Miyagi is there, and Miyagi deals with the tough and then puts Kreese on the floor and then throws Terry into a mirror and covers him in paint. Miyagi and Daniel get back to training, and they go and they replace the bonsai tree on the cliffside where it belongs, and do a little bit more training. Presumably, it's very fast here. Suddenly, we're at the tournament. We don't even get like a montage of the Tough fighting and beating a bunch of guys. It is just the Tough is there, and he's the final guy.
He hits like one guy in the face, and that's it. That's all we see.
Yeah, you get to just watch him finish one final opponent. There's no build up. We're just there. Silver, it turns out, is the sponsor of the event, leading us to believe that he is the one that changed the rule to get Daniel there, and announces all of his new dojos across the valley, led by Kreese, as like a big promo. He then lays out a plan with the Tough guy to keep Daniel at 0-0. So score a point and then take a dirty shot and get a point deducted. So they go into overtime. And then at overtime, that's when he's just going to just kick Daniel to death, apparently. So Barnes kicks Daniel in the groin. He makes a point. He kicks Daniel in the groin and loses a point.
That's with the balls.
Barnes swings wildly and punches Daniel in the chest. Daniel scores a point and Barnes takes a cheap shot, removing his prior point, keeping it at like 0-0. Daniel continues to just get his shit kicked in. The referee just keeps letting terrible things to happen to Daniel, despite the fact that he gives this guy final warnings like 3 to 4 times.
One more like that, you're out of here. One more like that, you're out of here.
And he does it like 3 more times. That referee was definitely getting paid off by Terry Silver. Miyagi gives him a pep talk / screams at him, basically. And Daniel goes and does his all kata. He flips Barnes, scores a single point, and he remains champion another year. And presumably the bad guy gets away with it. I don't know. We haven't seen Cobra Kai.
They committed a lot of crimes. Property damage, assault, everything just fine.
But yeah, I have no clue what happens. I'm having not seen the show. So for all I know, none of these people get their comeuppance. But so yeah, that's the end of Karate Kid 3. The end is so abrupt. The tournament is such a smaller part. Daniel's girlfriend's not even there. Like the love interest from the whole movie, I don't think is even there.
Well, she had a boyfriend, so
it was a weird, fast ending. It really was. So what did you think of Karate Kid 3?
Karate Kid 3. I hadn't seen the first one in so long. I don't think I've ever seen the one in Japan. I really liked the next Karate Kid with what's her face, Hilary Swank. That was fun.
Hilary Swank was pretty good.
Yeah, but so the thing I liked about this was I think at this point you can clearly see on screen that Daniel and Miyagi have great chemistry at this point. Every scene with them, even if it's poorly written scenes, you still see these guys get along really well. The actors are obviously doing really well with each other, and that just feels natural. And you're like, it doesn't feel creepy that he's spending this whole time with this old dude by himself. Like, it feels natural at this point. Also, I love bonsai trees, so I'm happy that we got to spend most of the time in this movie about bonsai trees and not about karate. It was just mostly about bonsai trees.
Mr. Miyagi's tiny trees.
That was so cute. I want to go to that store. Some great 80s music and clothes, even though it's like 1989.
Yeah.
It was like probably filmed in 88.
They even had an 80s band performing presumably what was supposed to be the big song from this movie in the dance club.
In the club live, yeah. The big hair and everything. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And the cars, there's lots of great cars in this movie. So I was really nostalgic. That's my list of things I liked about it. So what'd you like about this movie, Steve?
So I'm going to give a ton of credit in this movie, as ridiculous as it sounds. The guy who played Terry Silver, for a ridiculous role, ridiculous premise, I thought he genuinely did great.
He was a creepy asshole. That's true.
He was a creepy asshole. When he was the friendly guy, he played that incredibly well. You could see his internal pleasure with what was happening. Like, he communicated everything very, very well for what was overall like a scene chewy kind of role with very little redemption. I thought he did great, and I looked him up, and he is a trained opera singer who did Broadway and then went to LA, and this was his first movie. First big screen movie was Terry Silver.
There's some trivia about it later on too. I'll talk about with him. It's pretty cool.
But I thought he was like a kind of a better actor than this role deserved, and helped this movie not be a hopeless wreck.
Yeah, like what his motivations made no sense, but his acting was not a problem. That wasn't the issue. It was just the villain motivations made no sense.
He acted the hell out of this thing that he was given.
Yeah, he did.
And turned it into way more than it could have been.
Yep.
So I have to give him the credit. You're right, Miyagi and Daniel, Pat Morita and Ralph Macchio. So you're right. They've done 2 of these things already.
It felt natural.
Great. Yeah, felt great. I didn't hate Jessica, the love interest. That was kind of not a love interest, but kind of was.
There's trivia about that too. And she's Blake Lively's half sister.
Half sister. Yeah. But you're right. This movie was rough. The pacing was really, really strange to the point where because it's an hour and 50 minutes long.
Yeah, longer than I thought.
What the fuck? And I kept saying, like, when do we get to the tournament? There's only X amount of minutes left. And then when do we get to the tournament? And finally there was 10 minutes left. And I was like, well, there's going to be the tournament, right? It's going to happen in this movie, right?
And that's why I put the fight scenes themselves.
Rushed.
The fight scenes they did have, I thought the choreography was terrible. There was no connection whatsoever. The stunts were bad. Like, it just, for a fight karate movie, the fight scenes were real bad. I don't know.
And the other thing I don't like about this, and I know it's sort of the little silver hook they hang the hat on, but like it felt bad for Mr. Miyagi to be just so untouchable. Let the bad guys get one hit on Mr. Miyagi.
Something, yeah.
Something, but everything was him just dominating.
Yeah, show that he's getting older, you know, like he can't always defend himself completely, you know.
Yeah, you know, let him. I'm not talking about him getting the crap kicked out of him. See, I'm talking about him taking one hit in a fight with the main bad guy.
Yeah, make some stakes. Yeah,
please. But that being said, Pat Morita at this point was old. He had never done any martial arts in his entire life.
He's a comedian.
And he talks about that. He was like, I have when I got this role, I was like, I hope they know that I don't do any of this.
He has an American accent. I think he said in the audition, he tried to sound like his grandfather, I think it was. He's like, I tried to remember how my grandfather sounded, so I just broke into that real seriously. He's like, it was my first serious movie audition, and the whole room changed. They were like, oh, that's our Mr. Miyagi right there. And it's just like, he got it.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, because before that, his biggest credit was like Happy Days.
Mm-hmm. He's just a funny guy. He's just a comedian.
Yeah.
Also, but Jessica Andrews, the character was, as you said, badly used. I didn't
get it. It felt like someone was like, well, we can't make it like the girl from the first movie. And so they just avoided all the tenets of that.
So she was written as the love interest originally, and Ralph Macchio's character was supposed to have a romantic relationship with her in the movie, but he asked to have their relationship be platonic because he didn't want his wife to be jealous. And in addition, he felt uncomfortable with the age difference, which is understandable because he was 27 when he filmed this. He looks like a baby. And she was only 16. She was a minor. So he was like, let's make it platonic. And so they had to change the script last minute to be like, because they casted this really young woman and he just got married, didn't want to make his wife jealous, I guess. So that was why she suddenly became a friend and it was very awkward and shoehorned in. So that's apparently why that happened.
Yeah. And so suddenly she had a boyfriend and it was weird.
Yeah. Actually, my boyfriend and I are getting back together, maybe something. It was really weird one line.
Yeah.
But overall, I think kind of a meh movie for me.
Yeah, it's not the worst Rule of Three movie we've watched by any means. That still goes to that Nutcracker. There might be one other that's worse.
Creepshow.
Creepshow was pretty bad. But this wasn't on that level, but it wasn't exceptional. It was a poor carbon copy of what had been done before.
It's true. So recommend or not, I'd say, if you got nothing else to watch.
All right. Well, now comes to my bit where I'm just going to give us some information.
More trivia.
Oh shit.
Just a little bit. In the original script, Daniel's mother was never mentioned or seen in the movie, but it was also Ralph Macchio's idea. They have a scene of Daniel having a telephone conversation with his mother, explaining her absence that Steve mentioned. So that Daniel's mother went to New Jersey to take care of a sick uncle who had emphysema or something. It was very strange. This was the film debut of what Steve was talking about, that actor Thomas Ian Griffith, who played Silver, who portrays a Vietnam veteran, which I thought was really weird. In real life, Griffith was only 13 years old when the Vietnam War ended. Now, the time this movie was made, he was only 4 months younger than Ralph Macchio, who played a teenager. So he basically, but he was 6'4" or something like that. He's a tall guy. He's a big guy.
Big imposing guy.
So he pulled it off. And also with acting alone, just made it seem like he was that much older than Ralph Macchio, when really they're only, 10 months older than him.
Man.
Originally, there was a guy named John G. Alvildsen, who was the guy who was going to play, what the hell was the guy's name? The main bad fighter guy, against Ralph Macchio's character. The guy they hired to beat him at the tournament.
Oh, Barnes.
He was originally going to play Barnes, but they had him play Snake instead. They made that role for him because they liked him, but he just didn't fit Barnes. But he said he was no fan of this movie. He considered it a horrible imitation of Part 1, which will baffle those who haven't seen the first 2 films and insult those who have. But he agreed with star Ralph Macchio that making the picture was a miserable experience, largely because the screenplay was hastily written and sloppily rewritten, which is a risky procedure at best, and for us, it was deadly. So they all acknowledge this was like a piece of crap, hastily put together. They probably were trying to follow up the second one super fast, and this is what happened. So there you go. That's part 3 for you guys. But now Steve has a bit.
Oh, yeah. So I call this Rare Hits. I'm going to talk about some of the more rare and obscure martial arts. We all know karate.
Oh, yeah.
Taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, the big guys, but these are some you probably haven't heard of, at least not me. There's Kalari Payatu, or mostly goes by Kalari. It is often referred to as the first martial art, and it is an Indian martial art that was developed sometime in the 11th or 12th century. It's denoted for dagger fighting, fluid motions with swords, big fast kicks and high-flying kicks. It did go into decline sometime, though, in the 17th century. It is not very widely practiced now.
Sounds cool, though.
You've got Batariact. I don't know if I said that right. It's Irish stick fighting. This is where the iconic use of the shillelagh comes from. And because many of the weapons that were used were improvised, there's a lot of different styles based on the type of stick you got. In the 1800s, it became really closely associated with Irish gangs who would apparently wait until like big social gatherings, county fairs, weddings, and other major things to have these massive brawls where they would stick fight the crap out of each other. We've got Tatib, which is also stick fighting, but this one's from Egypt. And while Kalari is sometimes called the first martial art, this is depicted as being done as early as 2500 BC.
Wow.
But now the fighting part of the art is all but lost, but it carries on. Tatib is now performed as a form of folk dance with carefully choreographed routines set to music, typically performed at events and for tourists and that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Then there's Dambe, which is Nigerian boxing. It originated as a fighting style from fishers and butchers. It's typically fought in 3 rounds. One arm is wrapped in knotted rope until it's like this big sort of thing. It's referred to as the spear. The other hand is extended out with nothing on it in like an open palm, and it's called the spear and the shield. So the idea is you're using this one as like a bludgeoning weapon, and this one is defending.
Like push the bludgeon
holding
away.
the other at bay. There's also versions where they wrap legs in chains and stuff, and there's kicks involved. It sounds nuts. And winner is decided by whoever knocks their opponent to the ground the most in 3 rounds.
Jeez, sounds brutal.
If you have seen Overwatch, you know Doomfist?
Yeah.
That look is based off of Dambe fighting.
That makes sense. The one big fist, yeah.
Thing. If you look it up, it'll look very familiar. And then finally, I've got Okichita. Trying my best. Okichita. It's a Native American fighting style. It combines traditional techniques of the Cree with modern fighting styles, and it uses traditional weapons like daggers and axes and gunstock clubs. And while it sounds very old and ancient, it was actually invented by a Canadian guy named George J. Lepin in the 90s.
In the 90s?
Okichita, yeah.
Like not the 1890s, but the 1990s.
No. So it's some leftovers from this martial art that in theory did exist, but has mostly been lost, mixed with Taekwondo and other modern with a center on traditional weapons.
That's pretty cool though. Never heard any of that.
So those are some rare martial arts, and those are also rare hits.
Rare hits. I like it.
I recommend.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
What do you recommend I do?
I recommend Pleasant.
So kind of a cop out here because probably two shows that I've recommended before, but they're in not their final seasons, but The Only Murders in the Building. Fantastic show on Hulu. It just had its last season, but not the final season. And it was really good. Not as good as the first couple, but I still recommend it because seeing these characters solve a murder, I could watch it over and over again, even if it's not as profound as the other seasons. So many great cameos. I don't know if you watched the show or not, Steve.
Anna and I started watching. We probably got through the first 4 to 5 episodes.
Okay.
Before dropping off. I did enjoy it. I understand why people love it the way they do. It just wasn't our style.
Yeah, it's
fine.
We
did give it the old college try.
It's not like it's a big, profound show that must be watched, but I think it's just the cute interactions, especially Steve Martin and Martin Short just riffing off of each other, and then just, what's her face? I can't remember her name now.
Selena Gomez.
Her just being like reacting to these old men and telling them about how modern things work. It's really fun. And tons of cameos as the show goes on. It's getting more popular. They're getting more and more big actors in it. And the final season of What We Do in the Shadows is currently on. A fantastic show. It started off a bit slow, but now the episodes are getting pretty hilarious as the season goes on. And Jolie and I were able to see 2 of the main actors while we were at Dragon Con this past year. So that was a lot of fun. I feel a connection to it now. And the guy who plays Nandor was in his Nandor voice the whole panel. He just didn't get out of character the whole time. It was hilarious. But yeah, recommend checking them out if you haven't already. Both on Hulu, actually. So 2 Hulu shows. We're not paid sponsors.
I'm actually rewatching through What We Do in the Shadows right now while I'm here.
Nice.
In hopes that Anna and I will then watch it new when I get back.
The new season.
So I'm trying to get like recaught. So I'm somewhere in the middle of season 3 right now.
Yeah, fantastic. It's ridiculous. And I can listen to New York City like every single time he says
there
anything.
Is a great supercut of all the times he has weird ass inflections on things. That's what I told you back in New York City.
And they asked him in interviews, why do you say things so strangely, or how do you find the ways to say things? Like, well, actually, what it is that I get bored saying these lines over and over again. So when I say them for the 15th time, I say it in a strange way to make it more exciting. And then they keep that take. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Really? Is this the way you do business in Manhattan?
That's very sexual. Just like everything he says. And he does that somewhat on other shows he's been on. Toast of London and Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Toast of London is...
I love Toast of London. Oh my God.
Such a gem. Truly.
Well, what's his name in that show? Like, I love the voiceover sessions every episode. They're just amazing.
Oh,
Steven.
What the fuck is his name? Oh God.
It's Clem Fandango.
Clem Fandango. Steven. Yes. It's Clem Fandango. God damn it, I know Clem Fandango.
I know who the fuck you are, Clem Fandango. What do you want? Can you do it one more time, but can you say it more excited? Yes.
My favorite is when it's Gerald Fandango. It's like, Gerald. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to become an actor, and there's already a Clem Fandango. Because really, it's already a Clem Fandango.
You've got to be shitting me. God, what is it? Anyways, I think that takes us to some trailer reviews.
All right. This week, I had to go a little bit out of the box because nothing was really exciting me. So I picked something that looked very in our lane, very ridiculous, and something that I bet not a lot of people are talking about. And that is the Invisible Raptor. What appears to be a story about literally an invisible velociraptor on the loose from some sort of scientific facility.
And it has Sean Astin in it, but he's not the lead role by any means.
He is definitely going to be killed in the first 3 to 5 minutes of the movie. He is the guy. He's clearly the scientist there when the thing breaks out.
It looks that way.
This movie, I mean, I want to see it. I do. Genuinely just to see how they do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Because clearly this is a vehicle to do a very cheap movie.
Very few shots with an actual raptor. Yes.
And what I'm expecting is like good old school Hollywood camera tricks, utilization, implied movement, like those sort of practical effects. I'm excited to see them done to pull this off because I know they're clearly doing it on the cheap.
Yeah, shoestring budget. And I think the best way to describe it, this is in the trailer, is they find a guy who might be responsible for creating this invisible raptor. And they say, how did you make a raptor? He's like, well, you know that movie Jurassic Park? Yeah, we did that. And he's like, well, how'd you make it invisible? He's like, you know that movie, The Invisible Man? He's like, shut the fuck up. I was just like, that describes this movie perfectly.
We did that.
So, yeah.
It doesn't need an explanation.
No, it doesn't.
And then on top of that, we get like a haphazard, half-assed hero.
Yeah.
And I think it's not going to make $1 billion, but I think it's going to be like a fun movie. And I'm genuinely going to try to watch this.
Yeah, at least it's on streaming somewhere because it looks ridiculous and mindless, which is what I need right now. It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So check out the trailer for The Invisible Raptor, about a invisible raptor. And this one I'm going to give, it's Raul Julia, and he put in his favorite bath bombs, and he lit some candles, and he gets in the bath. He's got his music on, a glass of wine just on the right. And it's that his eyes are closed and there's a camera. And then you see like the shower curtain poke in and the distinct head shape of Gary Busey poking in, looking over. But then by the time Raul opens his eyes, it's gone. So that's what I'm going to give this.
It was an invisible Gary Busey.
Yes, an invisible Gary Busey.
I'm going to give this, Raul Julia's going into the kitchen for a midnight snack, and all of a sudden, just things start falling off the cabinets, and the cabinets are opening, and just like loud ruffling noises, and he can't see anything. He's like, oh my God, is it a poltergeist? What's going on? And then Gary Busey is seen in the corner pulling strings that he set up earlier. He's like, welcome to Jurassic Park. And Raul Julia's just like, what? What does a poltergeist have to do with Jurassic Park? I'm John Williams. So yeah, that's my review for this wonderful movie. Well, that does it for episode 209 of A Play on Nerds. Join us next time for a very, very special episode. The gigantic hit, predicted hit, Gladiator 2 is coming out, and some good cinema fodder there. And to celebrate that, we're going to talk about another Gladiator-style movie, but in the future dystopia that could possibly be happening in the future, The Running Man with the great Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's right. The classic that no one has ever talked about on a podcast before. We're going to do right here for you folks, groundbreaking stuff.
Hey, we rarely get to watch a movie that's somewhat mainstream. So
yeah, like I'm actually looking forward to this.
Give us a break for once.
It's pretty rare. Just know that if there was a Running Man 3, we would be watching that.
Yes, exactly. To be fair, we would.
Well, that brings us to the end of episode 209 of A Play on Nerds. Come back next time for all that fun and more. Be our nerdy audience. We'll be your nerdy co-hosts. Thanks again, Internet.
Stay nerdy, my friends. Thanks for listening to A Play on Nerds. Feel free to email feedback at aplayonnerds.com with all your questions or comments.
Shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter and earn yourself a sweet shout out on the show.
Review us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so even more nerds can find us. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, we aren't picky.
Check out our entire back catalog and other offerings at aplayonnerds.com.
And how?